are listening to the most comprehensive paranormal archive on the internet.
Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm continuing my series review, The Book of the Damned by Charles Fort. As always, you can find all episodes of the show along with links to social media, ways to listen, and ways to support the show at the website, and that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. And support is never expected but always appreciated, as there are expenses in making these shows. There are many ways to support the show. You can share the show with others and rate and review it on your favorite podcast platforms. You can sign up for the Patreon feed and get all the extra content there for as little as $1 a month. You can also check out the merchandise store and get all kinds of shirts and a few other items with designs made by friends of the show. And you can also always, if you wish to do so, you can make a donation through PayPal. And also, please follow friends of the show. That would be Jen, the Arcane Observer, who has her own channel and is the co-host of this show on Saturdays, whenever she's able to join me. Also, Ricky of the Anything is Possible podcast, who does a paranormal-themed show on Sundays, which I co-host. And Michael Strange, host of Troubled Minds Radio, which I often sit in and co-host as well, and the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where you can hear all kinds of amazing shows, as well as my own, online 24/7 for free. So a couple of things I always like to mention here at the start of these shows, with where I'm reading the books of Charles Fort. First of all, there will be things in there, thoughts and ideas and words that Fort uses that you and or I may not agree with. So that will happen. It's happened before. I'm sure it'll happen again. And just be aware of that. Also, there may be ideas and concepts and things he talks about in his books that seemed mysterious at the time, that are not so mysterious anymore. And that is probably due to about 100 years or so of time that's passed between when these books came out and the present day. And also, last thing but not least, is I apologize in advance for mispronouncing any names and or words in this book, as words and names can be hard. And also, there are more than a few names in this book that are not even in English. So that just increases the difficulty there. Anyway, I think that takes care of everything. I can't remember now where I was at in this page. I have a bookmarker in this app, but not a page. Not an easy to use marker for the exact spot on the page. So we're going to do maybe a little bit of review here, maybe not. I don't remember now. Anyway, getting back to this book. This page here, it says, or that all things in our intermediate state are phantoms in a supermind, in a dreaming state, but striving to awaken to realness. Though in some respects our own intermediatism is unsatisfactory, our underlying feeling is that in a dreaming mind, awakening is accelerated. If phantoms in that mind know that they're only phantoms in a dream. Of course, they too are quasi, but in a relative sense. They have an essence of what is called realness. They are derived from experience or from sense relations, even though grotesque distortions. It seems acceptable that a table that is seen when one is awake is more nearly real than a dreamed table, which, with 15 or 20 legs chases one. So now, in the 20th century, with a change of terms and a change in underlying consciousness, our attitude towards the new dominant is the attitude of the scientists of the 19th century to the old dominant. We do not insist that our data and interpretations shall be as shocking, grotesque, evil, ridiculous, childish, insincere, laughable, if I could talk, ignorant to 19th century, 19th centuryites, that's literally what it says, as were their data and interpretations to the medieval-minded. We ask only whether data and interpretations correlate. If they do, they are acceptable, perhaps only for a short time, or as nuclei, or scaffolding, or preliminary sketches, or as gropings and tentativenesses. Later, of course, when we cool off and harden and radiate into space, most of our present mobility, which expresses in modesty and plasticity, we shall acknowledge no scaffoldings, gropings, or tentativenesses, but think we utter absolute facts. A point in intermediatism here is opposed to most current speculations upon development. Usually, one thinks of the spiritual as higher than the material, but in our acceptance, quasi-existence is a means by which the absolutely immaterial materializes absolutely, and being intermediate is a state in which nothing is finally either immaterial or material. All objects, substances, thoughts, occupying some grade of approximation, one way or the other. Final solidification of the ethereal is, to us, the goal of cosmic ambition. Positivism is Puritanism. Heat is evil. Final good is absolute frigidity. An Arctic winter is very beautiful, but I think that an interest in monkeys chattering in palm trees accounts for our own intermediatism. Visitors. Our confusion here, out of which we are attempting to make quasi-order, is as great as it has been throughout this book, because we have not the positivist's delusion of homogeneity. A positivist would gather all data that seem to relate to one kind of visitors, and coldly disregard all other data. I think of as many different kinds of visitors to this earth as there are visitors to New York, to a jail, to a church. Some persons go to church to pick pockets, for instance. My own acceptance is that either a world or a vast superconstruction, or a world if red substances and fishes fell from it, hovered over India in the summer of 1860. Something then fell from somewhere, July 17th, 1860, at Dhurmsala. I'm not probably saying that wrong. Whatever it was, it is so persistently alluded to as a meteorite that I look back and see that I adopted this convention myself. But in the London Times, December 26th, 1860, Syed, I'm not sure, Syed Abdullah, professor of Hindustani University College, London, writes that he had sent to a friend in Dhurmsala for an account of the stones that had fallen at that place. The answer, in quotation marks, divers forms and sizes. I wonder if that means diverse. It's DIV, so it might be a typo. Diverse forms and sizes, many of which bore great resemblance to ordinary cannonballs just discharged from an engine of war. From engines of war, end quotation. It's in addition to our data of spherical objects that have arrived upon this earth. Note that they are spherical stone objects. And in the evening of this same day, that something took a shot at Dhurmsala, or sent objects upon which there may be decipherable markings. Lights were seen in the air. I think myself of a number of things, beings, whatever they were, trying to get down, but resisted like balloonists at a certain altitude, trying to get further up, but resisted. Not in the least except to good positivists or the homogeneous-minded does this speculation interfere with the concept of some other world that is in successful communication with certain esoteric ones upon this earth by a code of symbols that print in rock, like symbols of telephotographers, there we go, in selenium. I think that sometimes in favorable circumstances, emissaries have come to this earth, secret meetings. Of course, it sounds, of course, because he says, but secret meetings, emissaries, esoteric ones, in Europe before the war broke out. And those who suggested that such phenomena could be. However, as to most of our data, I think of super things that have passed close to this earth with no more interest in this earth than have passengers upon a steamship in the bottom of the sea. Or passengers may have a keen interest, but circumstances of schedules and commercial requirements forbid investigation of the bottom of the sea. Then, on the other hand, we may have data of super scientific attempts to investigate phenomena of this earth from above, perhaps by beings from so far away that they had never even heard that something somewhere asserts a legal right to this earth. Altogether, we're good intermediatists. We can't be very good hypnotists. Still another source of the merging away of our data, that upon general principles of continuity, if super vessels or super vehicles have traversed this Earth's atmosphere, there must be mergers between them and terrestrial phenomena. Observations upon them must merge away into observations upon clouds and balloons and meteors. We shall begin with data that we cannot distinguish ourselves and work our way out of mergers into extremes. In the Observatory, it's a publication, 35-168, it is said that, according to a newspaper, March 6, 1912, residents of Warmley, England, were greatly excited by something that was supposed to be, quotation marks here, a splendidly illuminated aeroplane passing over the village, end quotation marks, and then begin them again. The machine was apparently traveling at a tremendous rate and came from the direction of Bath, that is actually a place, B-A-T-H, and went on toward Gloucester, if I said that wrong, and then end quotation marks. The editor says that it was a large triple-headed fireball, end quotation marks here, tremendous indeed, end quotation marks. Triple-headed. So, unlike what you might see in like regular fireballs or regular things coming down where you might have things sort of like fire sticking out in different directions, in the back, you have it in the front. That's fascinating. He says, in quotation marks, but we are prepared for anything nowadays, in quotation marks. That is satisfactory. We'd not like to creep up stealthily and then jump out of a corner with our data. This editor, at least, is prepared to read. Nature, that's publication, October 27th, 1898. A correspondent writes that in the county Wicklow, Ireland, at about 6 o'clock in the evening, he had seen in the sky an object that looked like the moon in its three-quarter aspect. We note the shape, which approximates to triangularity, and we note that in color it is said to have been golden yellow. It moved slowly, and in about 5 minutes disappeared behind a mountain. The editor gives his opinion that the object may have been an escaped balloon. In Nature, August 11th, 1898, there is a story taken from the July number of the Canadian Weather Review by the meteorologist F.F. Payne, P-A-Y-N-E, that he had seen in the Canadian sky a large pear-shaped object sailing rapidly. At first, he supposed that the object was a balloon, in quotation mark, its outline being sharply defined. But as no cage was seen, it was concluded that it must be a mass of cloud, in quotation marks. In about 6 minutes, this object became less definite, whether because of increasing distance or not. and then quotation marks here, the mass became less dense, and finally it disappeared, in quotation marks. As to cyclonic formation, quotation marks, no whirling motion could be seen, in quotation marks. Nature 58-294, that upon July 8th, 1898, a correspondent had seen at Kiel an object, it's Kiel, an object in the sky colored red by the sun, which had set. It was about as broad as a rainbow and about 12 degrees high. In quotation marks, it remained in its original brightness about 5 minutes and then faded rapidly, and then remained almost stationary again, finally disappearing about 8 minutes after I first saw it. In quotation marks. Okay. In an intermediate existence, we quasi-persons have nothing to judge by because everything is its own opposite. If $100 a week be a standard of luxurious living, to some persons it is poverty to others. We have instances of 3 objects that were seen in the day in a space of 3 months, and this occurrence seems to me to be something to judge by. Science has been built upon concurrence, so have been most of the fallacies and fanaticisms. I feel the positivism of a liberator, or instinctively take to the notion that all 3 of these observations relate to the same object. However, I don't formulate them and predict the next transit. Here's another chance for me to become a fixed star. But as usual, oh well. A point in intermediatism, that the intermediatist is likely to be a flaccid compromiser. Our own attitude. Ours is a partly positive and partly negative state, or a state in which nothing is finally positive or finally negative. And that's where we'll stop for this episode. So, again, he's going over more of these objects seen in the sky. I just love that he keeps bringing up these massive things that are seen in the sky and calling them, again, without calling them UFOs or spaceships, almost calling them that. And going over these sightings from the 1800s to the 1900s, there, early 1900s. And again, just over and over again, he finds all these accounts of these experiences people have had and things people have seen. And this idea of aliens as well, really, without calling them aliens, is something he keeps coming back to. And it's amazing to me that, again, I mean, he is known in major circles of paranormal, but not by everyone. But anyway, thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.